This is the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, episode 56, Growing a Family Farm and Agritourism Business at Potluck Greenhouse, with our guest today, Nate Collett.
If you're trying to run your own business, I think the most important thing is to show up and consistently show up. And sometimes you do it when you're sick, you do it when you don't want to do it. A lot of people also have the idea that if you own your own business that you're very wealthy. That's very often not the case in a small business like ours. You really do have to work very hard to make anything like that work.
What is going on, everyone? This is your host of the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, Dustin Pierce. Real Change is a positive, constructive, and lighthearted source of local news, events, and resources. On our podcast, we interview leaders of local organizations to help squash rumors and encourage a greater sense of pride in our community. We have a really great interview for you today with our guest, Nate Collett, with Potluck Greenhouse over on 73. A quick overview of our podcast before we get started. Nate is a Clinton County native, born and raised. He worked in construction before joining the Air Force Reserves at the age of 22 and doing multiple tours in Afghanistan. After his service, he thought he wanted to pursue a career in construction management, but instead decided to come back to Clinton County and help take over and grow his family's farm with the help of his brother. Potluck Greenhouse offers a few different businesses under its roof, which we get into on the podcast, but probably one of the most fun is their fall festival, which started just a few years ago when Nate's mother got the idea from one of their vendors. Something interesting that Nate talks about on the podcast was how their agritourism business handled COVID and how that affected their business's growth. Another thing that I personally found interesting was asking Nate the difference between annuals and perennials, just how to know the difference by name only. And while he wasn't much help because, like he said, he grew up knowing the difference, one thing I thought of was that annuals are a pain in the annual because you have to grow them every stinking year. So if you have a better way to remember that, please comment on the podcast, but that's how I'm going to remember it from now on. Overall, I think what you'll love most about the podcast is just getting to hear the story of a local family's journey as farmers who have persevered and navigated an ever-changing world while serving our community and preserving local agricultural experiences for families to enjoy. So without further ado, let's bring in Nate and get our podcast started. Nate Collett, welcome to the Real Change Wilmington Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So to kick things off, just to get to know who you are, why don't you just start by telling us your story?
Well, I guess I've always lived, for the most part, I've always lived in Clinton County. Born and raised here, born at Flint Memorial, lived on Center Road pretty much all the way up until 18, 19. I lived in Kentucky for a year. I was traveling all over the country.
You just would be in a band, or you just...
No, first I was remodeling truck stops. It was for a company that contracted for Arnell. So first I went out to California. I was out there for like 6 months and just traveled from Sacramento all the way down to San Francisco. And we worked on all these different truck docks doing industrial remodeling. And then I kind of dried up. And so I ended up picking up this other gig, installing custom cabinetry for like Clinique, Estee Lauder, Lancome, Verizon, Sprint. And we worked for the cabinet manufacturer. So we'd go install their cabinets in whichever store we were doing. So we worked in pretty much all but 8 states over the course of 2 years. So moved around a lot. And that kind of was drying up. And so I ended up in the military. I was 22 then. I joined the Air Force.
What year was that?
2010, April 20th, 2010 is when I was at my first day of basic training. So I did that, did my technical training. Basically, my job was logistics. We learned how to load and unload aircraft, mainly cargo aircraft. But, also there's people that go on those cargo aircrafts too. So there's a lot of different configurations. I did my first tour in Afghanistan in 2011, did my second tour in Afghanistan in 2012, and then did a third tour in Kuwait in 2018. And I was in the reserves. So I was originally going to school in the beginning for construction management because I had a pretty good handle on the trades, but I didn't want to always be swinging a hammer. I want to be at least making more money or running my own company. And so I was going to school for construction management while I was doing the Air Force thing. And after my second tour overseas, they're 6-month tours at a time. So, the one got timed pretty good to where I got out of one semester and left like a couple days early. They let me do my finals early. And then I deployed and I came back and caught the next semester like a few classes late and then let me catch up. And so then the second tour, I missed a semester and kind of got backed up. And I just decided, I'm just going to start applying for construction management jobs. Like I have managerial experience with the Air Force. The military looks pretty good on a resume. And so I got a job at Springfield as a project manager for an installation company.
So you didn't finish your degree?
Never did.
Okay.
Nope. So I think I did like 4 semesters. That's all I ever went. And so I worked there for a couple of years, hated it.
Where in Springfield?
Robinson Installation Company.
Okay.
They do some work around here too. But I didn't like it. And so I ended up back with mom and dad at the greenhouse in 2016.
How old were you then?
Oh man, 8 years ago. So 29.
Okay.
So we just started coming up with other ideas. They were kind of tired. Their dad's 71 now, I think. So they were wanting to get out. And my brother and I thought maybe we could make it work together. So for a few years with them, we just kept building it up to make sure it was feasible to make enough to support him and I. And we started doing the fall festival. That was quite a large addition.
Whose idea was that?
I think mom's.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was mom's. But, she had talked to one of the salesmen that we purchased, like our pots and flats and dirt and that kind of stuff from. And he told her that there was a greenhouse that their fall was bigger than their spring. And so we was down in Cincinnati. And so we went down and looked at it. And there were so many people.
Their fall sales were bigger than their spring?
Yeah. And there was just, there's a lot of people there. And we went on like a Tuesday or something. And so we thought, well, these things, once we started looking into it, the fall things, the farm things are very, very popular. So we decided we'd go into agritourism or agritainment, whatever you want to call it.
Agritainment.
And it was a bit of a slow start, but once we got more figured out on the marketing side of things, it's gone very well.
Okay, I want to touch on a couple of things. So you're 2 in Afghanistan. Like, how did that change you as a person? I'm sure it had to. Like, it's a crazy experience.
Yeah. As far as like responsibility and stuff like that, I think that definitely opened my eyes. I know I was 22 when I went in, which is a little bit later than some people do in life, but you got to grow up pretty quick when you're getting bombed regularly. So the first tour wasn't quite bad. We did take quite a bit of fire, but the second tour was a little bit rougher. And so I do have some disability through the VA for PTSD. So I'm not going to talk about that incident, but you can't help but be changed.
Yeah.
And most of it's positive, I think, more positive than not. But, there's a lot of guys out there like me that suffer from that because of the wars.
Yeah.
So I'm more anti-war now than I probably ever have been.
Really?
Yeah. And mainly, I think there's more suffering for the guys like us than there are for the guys that initiate these wars. So that's my take on it.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Thanks for your service.
Yeah. No, I'm proud of what I did do and my brothers and sisters that were with me. But if there's a way we can fix things without wars, that would be for the best.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I feel like sometimes, I feel like lately politics is just like, I feel like I'm being a pawn in someone else's game.
Yeah.
We'll each all really and it's like, I think it's just, they want me to get out for their agenda,
Right. Well, and you look at just Russia, for example, like I've got no problem with Russian people. You probably don't have any problem with the Russian people, but the Russians that are in power and the U.S. people that are in power don't like each other. So does that mean that we should send our young men and women over there to fight them? Probably not,
Right.
But I'm not an expert in international policy either. So
yeah. Well, okay, that's a lot to unpack. Let's get back into the greenhouse. So you said the marketing really helped you grow. Like, what specific things did you do to get the word out there?
We tried a few different things in the beginning. I think we did some newspaper advertising. We didn't really see a whole lot from that. I think that was some news journal stuff. The thing is, I think most people in Wilmington know that we're there and what we do.
Sure, they drive past you. They have to.
Yeah, for the most part. So we switched over to more digital, Facebook marketing, that sort of thing. And, you can target demographics and all that sort of thing on there. And also, people, especially in the agritourism side of things, people come from will drive quite a distance to get to the right place that they want to go to. So, we're targeting those affluent areas and trying to bring them down as opposed to advertising locally.
Just locally.
So
bring the people like in the suburbs out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get 'em out.
People that, don't know the difference between a cow and a goat,
Yeah. Wow.
want to come out and pick a pumpkin. So,
Right on. So I want to kind of maybe go back and talk about all the different business outlets you guys had at the greenhouse, and then maybe we'll end it with the Fall Fest again, because you guys do a lot there.
yeah.
So you guys have like the greenhouse, you do a mulch business too.
Yeah. Which I could consider that all garden center sales, I guess. But yeah, so we sell landscape supplies, bulk goods, 3 different kinds of mulch, topsoil, and several different kinds of decorative gravel,
Okay.
and some limestone and sand too. People need their pools put in, we'll deliver sand to them, that kind of thing. We don't actually do really any installs ourselves.
Okay.
So we just do the sales.
Do you deliver it? Do you have like the trucks and stuff?
Yeah, we do deliver. I do about 250, 300 deliveries a year, somewhere around there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
Where do you get all that stuff from?
the gravel I get from Hillsboro, and then the mulch comes out of Kentucky.
Oh, dang.
It's just, even with the trucking, they just have a good price, better price than I could find anywhere local.
And that part of the business was established by your parents?
Yes, the mulch side, I built, when I came back, I think in 17 or 18, we added it might even been 16. We added the gravel and the topsoil.
Kind of makes sense to get in the hands.
Yeah.
Landscaping stuff.
Again, when I came back, we're trying to expand as much as possible, so that way there's enough income for everyone.
For sure. What was your brother doing before?
He went to Wilmington College for business, though he had graduated and was still working for mom and dad. They really wouldn't have been able to do it very easily without him. So yeah, we worked together for a couple of years, thought we could do it, and so we bought him out 3 years ago. I used to be their 4th year in the spring.
So how did your parents acquire the property or get into farming?
Well, we also farm. So my grandparents, they had, I think it's like 550 or 600 acres up there, Caesars Creek. And when they put in Caesars Creek and they flooded the town of New Burlington, those were my family's from. And that's where my grandpa's hardware store was at. And they eminent domain took most of our ancestral land up there. So we have 110 out of 500 acres left up there. So grandpa took the money that they paid him and bought the farm over on Center Road that we live in.
Okay.
Now, so dad farmed that with grandpa, and he farmed the land that had left up in New Burlington. And when grandpa and Don bought that farm it was called Hardware before it was called Propane. Well, they were both there together.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the Collett propane company?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so called Propane, called Hardware, they're both in the same building there.
Okay.
And then called Hardware went out when Lowe's came in.
Okay.
But the ground there, they owned together, that farm there on 73, grandpa and him owned together. And the acres that we have there was a gift to dad from grandpa because dad paid for his own college.
Okay.
So that's why we're where we're at.
What does eminent domain mean? Like the government just came in and took the land and paid you money for it?
Yes, essentially. But this was so when I guess they could either take so much based on elevation or distance from, I don't know if it's shoreline or whatever it was, but so they always took as much as they could. And I don't remember what it was. I think 2,500 an acre, but that could be. And so it was take it or leave it. Like, we're going to take the land. You can take the $2,500 or you cannot.
Yeah.
But either way, it's gone.
That's per acre, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe, and I could be wrong on that.
But they paid you a price per acre is what the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I assume that's before your time.
Yeah, I was not around in the 70s now.
Okay. So your parents farmed and then they opened up a greenhouse?
Yeah. Dad started his first season was 78. He was working at the hardware next door and had one greenhouse for about 2,000 square feet, and then sold the stuff in front of the hardware, and then just kept building it. And we're at 26,000 square feet of growing facility now.
Do you still take care of any of the farming piece?
Yeah, him and I, we farm almost 300 acres together.
You just rotate like corn and soy?
Yeah, we don't do wheat anymore. Prices are volatile. I never know.
Okay. And then you also, the garden center has like trinkets and things like that. When did those start coming into the business?
I think the garden center got built in 96. Yeah, somewhere in there. But we didn't have a lot of success with the garden center initially. I think, they still had their checkout counter in the greenhouse like they always had. And so when that started becoming successful was when they moved their checkout counter into that building. So everyone had to go through there, to check out. But I think before it was kind of off over there by itself and didn't get as much.
You mean like the bird houses and stuff like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff? Like
Yeah.
people just didn't look at that.
Well, yeah. I don't think they went through there as much or even realized what was, it just it wasn't presented very well. But I know in 2004 we had there was a big snow and it collapsed a bunch of our greenhouses. So we rebuilt behind the garden center. So the majority of our space now is you have to go through the garden center to get there or,
Okay.
back out. So that was what I think that really started taking off for us.
That makes sense though.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. I'm surprised at how like big some garden centers are. Like there's some in like Mason area that are just like enormous. Like IKEA's basically for like plants and trees and stuff.
Yeah. It's population density though,
Yeah.
So the grandma's gardens, that's another big one.
Mm.
It's not too far away, but they have a better population density than we do here.
Sure. So what are some of your most like popular items in different seasons, I guess?
The number one sellers are like 4.5-inch annuals. So they're either proven winners, like, and then we grow a lot of different varieties in that 4.5-inch pot, but that's their main seller. Probably some of the most popular ones are, the, super petunias. That's been real big in the last few years. Proven winners are, I don't know if you're familiar with plants at all, but it's a brand and essentially we get the cuttings. So we get those plants when they're small, and then we put them in the 4.5-inch pot. They're maybe like an inch and a half in size when we get them, including the dirt and the plug and everything. And then, we up on them, and then we take it from there all the way to retail ready. And we get a couple different plantings. So essentially, we get an early planting. We get that one going in the retail space, and then back in the back where we don't have retail space, or we don't have customers through, we have a later planting. That way, we try to, for the most part, target everything to be ready by May 15th, which is the frost date. And that's where, when I say ready, I'm saying like the optimal size to where it's not too big where we have to water it a couple times a day, but it's ready to go for the customers. And then that second planting back in the back, rotate in as we develop product.
Yeah. I had a friend who worked at a garden center and she was like telling me that like, I guess is it Mother's Day? That's like the most popular, like,
absolutely, like
madhouse.
Yeah. And it is.
Okay.
That weekend, as long as it doesn't rain.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a good weekend.
Okay, so how do you know the difference between an annual and a perennial?
How do you tell the difference?
How do you like in your mind the word annual and the word perennial? Like,
well, I grew up there, so it's not that difficult for me. But annuals die annually. It's probably the easiest.
But I feel like that word is like annuals, like they last annually, but it's not. It's like confusing for me.
Yeah, well, perennials they always come back. Well, they should. There's always circumstances. You might have a cold winter, they might not make it.
And do you grow your fall plants?
For the mums?
Yeah.
We grow probably about a third of what we sell. And then I get the rest from Mennonites down in Bainbridge.
Nice.
They grow like tens and tens of thousands outside in big fields.
I think I bought some flowers from them at 10 Cap. Like they had a truck that came one day and that lasted forever. They're still going.
Yeah.
It's like they're pretty quality.
Nice.
Flowers. So you also do buildings now.
Yeah.
And sheds and greenhouses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How did that get started?
So when the Wooden Branch was getting ready to go out, they posted on Facebook that they had a closeout sale. It shut down. I can't remember what exactly the verbiage, but anyways, I just went down there, and I had already been kicking around the idea of getting into that business. Anyways, I actually lived I built a tiny house out of one I lived in for like 3 years.
Nice.
And so yeah, I was kind of more interested in the side of finishing them and selling them finished than just the empty shed. So I kind of been thinking about it. They went out, they posted that thing on Facebook, so I just went down there and asked him why you're getting that. Is it worthwhile? I'm kind of thinking about doing it, and he said, "I'm 81. I'm just ready to be out." I guess whatever company bought him out offered him more than he wanted to get out quickly. And
yeah,
he said it's definitely a good gig. If you got any questions along the way, let me know. And so I did end up going with the company that he had on consignment. I went with a different one, but immediately it was a good thing for us.
Yeah.
We started getting buildings in January. I got 6 of them. I sold them all before February came around. Then they started loading us up with inventory, and we moved it pretty quickly. So
this was just people driving by, seeing the buildings, and
or so everything I put on Marketplace.
Oh, okay,
yeah. And so I do a lot of sales off of Marketplace. I do some on Craigslist. I don't have nearly as good luck with Craigslist as Marketplace, which I think that's just a volume game anyway.
Sure,
I don't think Craigslist has the volume that Marketplace does.
Yeah.
And there's a website called Chefs for Sale. I put something on there. I got to put 25. without having to purchase anything from them. So just my online presence is pretty strong.
So I have like a business question. So you buy these or a lot of these consignment. Why doesn't the company that sells them just put them on marketplace themselves? Like, why do they even need to?
Well, it's regional too.
Yeah.
So the company that Timberline Barns, they're in 6 different states. So they're a large corporation. So they do have some corporate lots, and like wherever they're like they have 3 different manufacturing plants, and they'll sell out of those plants, and they do have corporate lots also, but you have to sell quite a bit of buildings to, cover a salary. You know what I mean? So
For like a driver and like your salary and.
well, I'm saying like to man that lot. If you're keeping that lot manned,
Okay, yeah.
best case scenario, you're getting somebody for maybe 50,000 a year, something like that. If you want someone that's somewhat dependable, you know what I mean? You're talking about sometimes we get $11,000-$12,000 in cash. You know what I mean? You can't, from a corporate standpoint, you can't be in Knoxville and have somebody that you barely know up here to handling tens of thousands of your dollars. You know what I mean? So
I think so. Yeah. So you're like their salespeople. Yeah, that makes sense.
right.
Makes sense how that relationship works. Cool.
Yeah.
And you also do like custom builds too, right? Like bigger barns, like metal barns.
Yeah, we do have the metal buildings.
And that's not part of that. That's different.
That's a different company. Yeah, that's Reliable Metal. They have a plant in Blanchester. So those buildings are actually manufactured in Clinton County. But yeah, they can do. I mean, sky's the limit on those buildings.
At some point in my life, I might have a barndominium, I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
They're pretty popular these days.
Yeah, we'll see. So back to the Fall Fest. Can you like describe the different things that are there, like all the activities and stuff?
Yeah, so there's we have a petting zoo. We have goats in there. We have multiple inflatables, like bouncy houses, like bouncy castles, you might think of. We have inflatable slide, tiles, big culverts. I got two of those. One's a slide and one is on a track and you walk and it rolls.
Okay, yeah.
Call that a rat roller. Then I got giant chests. I got a shed that's just completely filled with corn. It's called a corn swim.
That's amazing.
I've got...
Is that safe?
Yeah, it's only, I don't know, 2 feet deep maybe.
That's pretty cool though.
Yeah, it's pretty popular. I find corn everywhere. Yeah,
They need that at the corn festival, I think.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Have that for it.
I've seen a lot of these farms that do.
Yeah.
Almost all of them have.
Yeah.
Have the corn swim. Yeah, and then I have a track. It's got tricycles, adult size and kid size. Then the corn maze is about 4.5 to 5 acres, depending on where I put it. I rotate crops, so depending on the space that I put it in every year varies. But that it's themed differently every year. This year it's Island Adventure, so there's some palm trees and I think a little tiki guy and volcano, and that pattern's all cut into the corn.
How do you do that? Is it like a GPS program?
It is, yeah. And I'm part of there's a farm in Pennsylvania that designs these mazes for people all over the country and even some in Canada. And so I send him the GPS coordinates, the outsides of the field, and then I pick a theme, and then they overlay that, adjust it to whatever our field size is that year. And then a guy comes out with a tractor, and he's got a little tiller on the back, and it's 5 foot wide. And he has a little handheld GPS and he drives and tills out the corn that's already been planted.
So it's not your equipment cutting it down?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No. I'm not familiar enough with GPS. I don't think I could do nearly as good of a job as he does. But it also comes with like the graphics. So there's different stations out there.
Okay.
Like again, this is the island theme. So I think most of there's some Hawaii trivia out there, and we give them a game sheet, and the game sheet has blank spots to fill in, and you go find those different stations in the maze and fill them in. So that membership comes with all that stuff included.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah. And then and also on the game sheet, there's a map on the back, but it's hidden, and there's one spot out there in the maze you can slide it under a piece of red plexi, and then you could see. It should tell you where you're at. You could try to plan your way out.
Huh. What is your favorite attraction?
I like the maze.
The maze.
Yeah. I think the maze is pretty cool. I mean, we do a hayride too, which, a lot of times I'm the hayride driver as well. But I don't know. There's so many different things. This year we added a basketball game made out of a grain bin.
Oh yeah, I saw that at the corn festival this year.
Yeah,
I think so. I think it's the same thing.
Probably. Yeah, gravity wagon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that's pretty cool. I like the giant like trike things. That's interesting.
They're popular. Yeah, and then we have a little train that goes through the corn too. You get a little train drive.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever drive that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What year did you come back to the business again? 2016?
Yeah.
2016?
Spring of 2016.
What's been like from then to now, like some of the challenges you faced and overcome?
Well, I guess, we're taking a business and trying to build it. So, I guess you kind of got to balance like how much money you want to put into something to build it versus how much you also want to make. And so sometimes you got to make choices like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do this because I'm trying to do this.
Mm-hmm. That's like a while to like figure out that balance.
Yeah, sometimes it does.
Yeah.
But we've been pretty fortunate too. 2020 was a bad year for a lot of businesses, but we sort of had the opposite. And a lot of garden centers did. Most independent garden centers really saw a boom. So we were able to expand quite a bit since then during 2020 and onwards.
Like you capitalize on that just because you have new people coming in and that became familiar with you and came back.
Well, I mean, it's weird to think about now, but if you remember 2020, there were so many things that were shut down. There were so many things that you couldn't do. And we were worried. In Michigan, the governor had closed down garden centers, so they can't operate. And the spring season is about the only time in our industry where that's where you make everything for the year. I mean, you might do some fall sales, sure, but that's not your main bread and butter. So
you already invested the money in like stuff, so you're like, oh, crap, sell this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because in March you've already spent, you've bought everything. Yeah, by March, and I think it was April timeframe that they started shutting things down. We always supplied Easter flowers for churches. Well, the churches weren't meany. So we had hundreds of tulips and daffodils and hyacinths that we were stuck with. We sold a few retail, to walk-in customers, but not a lot. I just made a Facebook post on my personal page saying, I've got a bunch of these if you know anybody. And I got like 140 shares. And we were fortunate in the fact that we did end up selling all of them.
Nice.
The retail, which was great. The vast majority of it anyways.
I remember like that season of life. By the fall, I was like so over the COVID shutdown.
Oh,
so I remember going to a lot of fall festivals. They were like so crowded. Like everybody in the world was out at the fall festivals.
And that was another thing. We went back and forth on whether or not to be open, and a lot of other people did too, and a lot of other people closed. And there was festivals like the Apple Festival in Lebanon that was canceled.
Yeah.
And some other different local festivals. So I think 2022 we actually beat 2020's attendance, but 2020 was far above what we thought our attendance would be. Mm-hmm. And what was weird to me was there's a lot of business that were shortening their hours, cutting things down, making it where you could only come certain times. Mm-hmm. And that didn't make any sense to me because you're just funneling people into this time set. And so instead, why not be open more hours? You know what I mean? That way you spread the people out.
Sure.
That worked for us. We also did a online ticketing thing to where we only sold so many per half hour or 15 minutes. I can't remember what the increments were, but I mean, we had a lot of people.
You had like the inventory there to like.
We made it work.
Yeah.
I'd call anybody I could to source. And I had to do that in the spring because we were very busy.
Yeah.
And, I was buying stuff for everywhere I could find to buy decent looking flowers. Cause at the end of the day, like we are a mom and pop shop. So quality has to be there. So it's a driving factor. So even if we are buying stuff in, if it's not up to the rest of our standards, we'll, if I buy something sight unseen and we don't like it, we'll put it in the back and get it to where we think it's saleable. Mm. So
what are some of your proudest accomplishments being in the business for the song and seeing it grow and stuff?
I think at this point, we've more than tripled revenue from 2016. So that's not a small feat.
No.
But I mean, my brother and I together, he does the growing side of things. I do more in the customer service, the buildings, the bulk stuff, and he's very, very smart with the business side of things, with the money and that kind of stuff. So
your parents had the business for around 40 years? Was it 70s? And in less than 10 years, you tripled it?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a good accomplishment.
Yeah.
They did lay the foundation for you, though. So.
They did. And they really did. When we came into it, they had everything. We were completely set up for success. They hadn't left us the way they did. We were struggling a lot more.
So I don't know much about like what people say about, the business. But one question that we always ask is like, are there any stigmas or rumors in the community that are not true that you want to address? Some things that made you like laugh, like why does someone think that about us for? Maybe they don't, but like I said, I don't know of any. So
I don't know. I would have thought we would have heard something, but can't think of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What keeps you passionate about doing this?
Retirement. I'm passionate about building it and being successful, and ultimately the earlier I can retire, the better. Because it's not an easy job. It's hard on your body. My dad, he's had so many joints replaced at this point, because he did it in all the way into his 60s, late 60s. I don't want to be lugging benches around and all that kind of stuff when I'm too much older. So, yeah, I guess the best thing we could do is just make it as successful as we can to where we can pass it off or whatever.
Are you married? Do you have kids?
I have 2 kids, yeah. I got married 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Yikes.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I was on the 8th. So maybe 2.5, whatever.
Did you have a honeymoon or anything? Or
No.
no?
Like I said, we got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so
Okay.
pretty hard to get away.
I guess. Well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can pass it on to your kids someday.
Yep. Yeah, if they're interested.
If they're, yeah.
Yeah. He said he wants to be a farmer, but he's 3, so who knows?
He'll be a fireman next week.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So this question I always ask: what's a quote or piece of wisdom that's helped guide you that you're going to share with other people? It can be something recent or in the past.
If you're trying to run your own business, I think that the most important thing is to show up and consistently show up. And sometimes you do it when you're sick. You do it when you don't want to do it. It's not you own your own business. And, a lot of people also have the idea that if you own your own business, that you're very wealthy or you're rich. That's very often not the case in a small business like ours. You really do have to work very hard to make anything like that work. And, we'll do 14-hour days in the spring. 12-hour days are standard, but, every once in a while you get one of those 14-hour days. And I think that's sometimes when people want to start a small business or something like that, they think, I'm just going to be in my 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And that doesn't, I guess it depends on what business you're in, but a lot of times you've got to work a lot harder. And you got to do some stuff for free too, and if you're trying to get something going, get traction, I don't know if it's knocking on doors or whatever, to drum up revenue. But I would say just chill up and discipline. Try to have the best product that you can have.
Do you think, I assume you have a team of people too that help your business. So was showing up also important just to set a precedence for
Absolutely
the team? Absolutely.
But, that's something that I learned in the military too. I'm very consistently 15 minutes early everywhere I go. I usually try to bring that with me to work too. First one in, last one out. And you got to take care of your team too. That's another thing. It's just that I learned in the Air Force.
Did you fund team activities?
No.
No.
Nobody likes those, man.
No one likes those?
I guess it depends.
I
don't like those.
You don't like it? It's lame?
Yeah. The fun team activities would probably
get paid more. Go home early.
Yeah, I do give them bonuses, spring bonuses and Christmas bonuses.
Nice.
That's a fun team activity for us would probably be chips and queso and margarita at Fiesta Veracruz. Is probably our best activity.
Nice. That is fun. So you live in the area, right? You live do you still live on Center Road?
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on in the community. What do you think would be a positive change in our community?
Honestly, I think that the more space that is occupied by businesses at the air park, the better for us. One thing, when DHL went out, and I can't remember what year that was, but we lost 40% revenue that year and didn't make it up for several years later, over a decade, till we got back to where.
Just your business?
Just the greenhouse, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that there's still empty spots over there, and I think that the more the Port Authority can work to get people in those spots, the better. Obviously, Amazon coming in was a big help, but I still, and I'm not sure, maybe what number of jobs are there now?
I don't. I know they just got a bunch of grants this year to open up the second airport again.
Okay.
So there's progress coming, but I don't know the exact employees that are there.
Yeah. I think that's something that will benefit everyone.
You know what the CIC, or I think it's CIC, Clinton County Investment Corporation or something, they own some land next to the airport too, and they're trying to market it to a big manufacturer. It's if you go online you can find it. It's called Airport North or something.
Interesting. Never heard of it.
But they're trying to bring in a big manufacturer into the area.
That'd be great.
Cool. So if people want to get in touch with you, if they have more questions, how would they best do that?
You can go onto our website and there's a contact us. They'll give us a direct email. They could call us. Our phone number is 937-382-8312.
What are your business hours?
Currently, we are 9 to 5, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, and 9 to 7 on Saturday, and we are closed on Tuesdays. So that's our usually fall rotation. Our hours change with the seasons. And once we're done, I think our last day this year is November 3rd, we'll shut down, just go down to 3 days a week, just selling buildings until March, and then we'll open back up 9 to 5 again.
Cool. Thanks for coming on our podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Well, that's it for our podcast today, folks. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Nate Collett at Potluck Greenhouse. If you have more questions for him, feel free to reach out directly. If he'll talk with us dorks, he'll certainly talk with you as well, because after all, we are a community of empowered individuals. If you want to get in touch with Real Change Wilmington to share your story or leave feedback, you can contact us on our website at realchangewilmington.com, visit our Facebook or Instagram pages, or even grab a free copy of our local newspaper at Kroger, Sam's Meat, and Fiesta Veracruz. We also currently send our newspaper direct mail to over 2,500 Wilmington residents, so if you want to help us cover our printing costs and advertise your local business, event, or job posting, please email us at advertise@realchangewilmington.com. With that, I'm your host, Dustin Pierce. Keep it real, Wilmington.